You're getting this video because my friends canceled twice on me, so here I am stuck miserable in my house, and that's why I'm gonna make this video. So you can blame my friends for forcing me to film this video, because I might have not gone around to them if they hadn't canceled plans on me twice. So before we go on, I just want to say that this video is pretty different and it might be kind of weird, and I don't know if you want to watch it if you don't like what I call this, a long cynical rambling of a teenager. Yeah, if you think that stuff is cringe, then maybe you should like leave, you know? If you don't go on Tumblr for like 6 hours a day, this might be a little bit too much for you. I remember the last time I used these lights. Ugh, I have to put them in my hair and stuff. Do this. Yeah, this isn't as much effort you're gonna get from me as like a set thing, because who do you think I am? Fucking ContraPoints? Bo Burnham? You're funny, you don't have those nice little LED lights that I have. Yeah, so the world is ending and I'm scared. Our planet is slowly becoming warmer, and humans, like frogs in a pot of water, are slowly being boiled alive. It's a distinguishing feature of modern life to be constantly embargoed by the sense of doom that like the world is gonna end anytime. Big caps, all dramatic, the end, the world is gonna be fucking gone. Perhaps it's just me and my over-anxious way of thinking that makes it seem like the end of the world to be much more of a bigger deal than most people seem to think it is. Like most people just approach it with almost apathy, you know? And it's outrageous to me, absolutely outrageous. Sometimes I'm so anxious about the end of the world that I forget to breathe, and I sometimes feel really alone in that feeling. I feel like nobody ever thinks about the end of the world as much as I do, which, granted, is a very strange thing to think about, but it's books like Future Home of the Living God that makes me feel as if, you know, somebody else in this world does understand the fucking terrifying fear of the world just, you know, going to shit. So I have always been a sort of prone to having existential crises, but in the past year that has really spurred on in me. Like I really have noticed the increase of existential crises in my life. Future Home of the Living God is about when the future of humanity as a species is threatened. Something has happened biologically and babies are no longer born as regular babies. Something in our evolution has gone wrong, and somehow we're going backwards. We're becoming less Homo sapien, more Homo erectus. So the story follows a pregnant woman who's trying to evade capture from the government because the government is like taking control of women's reproductive rights. Abortions are illegal and people are getting like forcefully impregnated because the government wants to figure out, oh, what the fuck is happening to the human race, right? So that's what the story is about. The world of Future Home of the Living God is one of very much finality. You have the feeling that this is the end of the world. Humans are going to go extinct as a species, and not because of something humans have caused, but in general just because, you know, Mother Earth is done with us. The world is going to shit because biology just is fucking done with us. It's done with the shameless activity that humans have participated in for at least the last 400 or so years. But even though, while the world in the book is going to shit, women are no longer treated as people. They're like birthing machines. Environmentally, it's not very good either. It's getting warmer and warmer, and it doesn't snow anymore. But distinctly, there's a feeling of hope to it. There's no thesis for this video, no point I'm trying to illustrate. I only really want to use Future Home of the Living God as like kind of a vehicle to describe this sort of new existential wave that has been crashing down on me for the past like month or so, because I've been really feeling lost. This isn't a book review, it's not a critique of the book. It's not really even about the book, so I will warn you, this is very different from what I usually make, and it's very personal. I will try to add moments of levity in this video, but writing this has simultaneously been so like relieving and like a type of therapy for me, and at the same time so fucking exhausting. Like seriously, nobody fucking recognizes how much energy it takes to be sad and cynical. Can't have to keep this thing on my head. I don't fucking care how aesthetic this is. It's so fucking annoying. Jesus Christ. There are three aspects of the dystopian world that Louise Erdrich creates. One, The world is slowly falling apart. 2. The Earth's environment is becoming much more hostile. And 3. The policing of women's bodies and women's rights, and in general, just sexism in general. It's rampant in this book. So arguably the first two things of the world falling apart and the environment becoming much more hostile to humans can be put together, but I'm going to talk about them separately because I feel like they're completely separate things and they can be thought about separately, and for me they have been extremely separate things that don't really intersect with each other. In the first section, I really want to focus on the existential crisis of it all. I want to focus on more like political upheaval, more like the social things around that stuff, humanity's side of things that have been happening in the world, and in the environmental part it's gonna be purely just, the environment. This has nothing to do with actual, people doing bad things. I mean, people are doing bad things to the environment, but like not in the same way that, for example, what's a good example that isn't like too, like for example, I would categorize Donald Trump in the political upheaval part, but not that much in the environmental part, even though he did affect the environmental thing in America. I'm aware of that, but I'm just not going to talk about it that much. So those are two different parts. In the world of Future Home, evolution is going backwards. I feel like this is reflected in our world in the way that how Western society or how Western democracy has been going on a downward spiral in the past year or so. It feels like all the outdated sentiments and ideals have resurfaced and now are basking in the sunlight after years after we have condemned them to the shadows, and now they're back. Abortion laws in the US are becoming stricter and stricter. Roe versus Wade is in danger of being overturned. Extreme radical right-wing thinking is on the rise, and hate speech against minorities is more and more acceptable. Our environment is collapsing around us, and there's nothing we can do to stop giant conglomerates from burning our homes. Our world is running backwards. There have been protests in Belarus, in the United States, climate change strikes, anti-lockdown protests. For fuck's sake, there have even been an anti-mask protest in Toronto. What's the point? The point is that this is fucking absurd. No less absurd than the premise of any kind of dystopian novel. Every day I wake up to the feeling of impending doom. And God hasn't helped. Though it's shameful for me to admit, but I sometimes feel like as if God is a joke, and this existence is one big train wreck that's going to end in the self-destruction of the human species. Sometimes at night, I just lay down and let the waves and anxiety about the end crash over me, and sometimes it gets so bad that I can barely breathe. It's funny how something so fucking abstract and incomprehensible can send me down a long train of thought about how, well, everything I know right now will be dust eventually one day. And yes, I do sound awfully a lot like a depressed Tumblr teen from 2016, but I did warn you, didn't I? I am painfully self-aware of that point, but until some sort of new vocabulary has been invented for me to describe what it feels like to lay in your bed and be absolutely sure that you're gonna die tonight, I will stick to my aggressively gloomy rhetoric. I think it's about time that I connected this spiel back to the book, because roughly 20% of this has only been about the book. Feelings are hard, right? Evidently, for me at least. I have to use the guise of discussing a book to really just talk about my feelings online that I'm too uncomfortable to share to people face to face. So on the topic of feelings are hard, big and shapeless feelings like doom and anxiety are hard to process. It's very hard to figure out where that fear comes from and to give it a shape. And a lot of times giving it a shape and a name does help, and it rationalizes it a lot, and it makes it slightly more bearable. That's what Future Home of the Living God has done for me. It's created a fictional world where all of my fears are in it. It embodies all of my worst fears, and it's fucking great. Like, I'm not being sarcastic right now. This part isn't sarcasm. The world portrayed in Erdrich's novel isn't a great world by any means. It's a distinctly terrible world that I myself have feared, and it's almost extra terrible for women in that world. So why has such a depressing book given me such hope and solace? The reason that I found comfort in this book is because the book never loses hope. Even at the very last sentence, when everything has gone to shit and we're certain that the main character is probably gonna die or something, the last sentence is still brimming with hope. Where will you be, my darling, the last time it snows on Earth? This is said by the main character, Cedar, who has recently just given birth to her child in a government-controlled institution. So she doesn't know whether her child has survived or not, whether it's a girl or boy, or whether or not she will even get to see her child ever again. But she still holds on to the hope that her child is alive and that they will live a good life. No matter how bleak the world is in this novel, there's still this distinct feeling that things will be fine. And that's the mantra for the end of the world. Things will eventually be fine. Rises the moon. So Future Home, I'm going to refer to the novel as Future Home for now on because I just realized the title is really fucking long. It has an overarching climate theme in the background. It's not fully addressed, but just having brief mentions of it kind of sent me into panic mode while reading this book. This fear for me is closely related to the fear of death, but more concrete. I can tell you exactly what I'm afraid of. I'm afraid that the environment is going to be so inhospitable to human life that we're going to be forced to leave this planet. The air will be poisonous, the waters are acidic, and the land will try to evict us like tenants who have missed out on rent one too many times. I'm not so much afraid that the increasingly foreboding climate crisis is going to kill us, as I'm anxious that the rising temperatures and increasing frequencies of natural disasters is going to make living very, very painful. You see, as much as I don't enjoy the idea of death, I deplore the idea of suffering even more. And if you're going to kill me, just do it quickly, efficiently, please. A world where it rarely snows anymore is not the focus of Future Home, but I think that's actually the strength of Erdrich's world building. Many people have criticized her for the vagueness in her world building and that there's no really like concrete answers or concrete like reasons for why so and so is happening. But I actually find that her approach to a dystopian novel is very similar to that of Don DeLillo's. His novel, White Noise in particular, both of those novels, White Noise and Future Home, are very connected to the present time's fears and anxiety, and it's very much more in commentary on society than a dystopian novel to explore ideas, I think. And both books have had a tremendous effect on me, so thank you, DeLillo and Erdrich, for accompanying me on my monthly dalliance with an existential crisis. The environmental crisis is sort of a backdrop to the world that Erdrich's story is set in. The story isn't focused on the change in the environment, though it's constantly there, and there are mentions, and you as a reader will notice that this is a world where the environment has deteriorated. There are little mentions of the temperatures being too hot for September, little reminders that the environment has changed and things are unstable. I find that the vagueness of the mentions of the environment and also the kind of apathetic way that the characters treat the climate crisis is very relatable, actually. There are always issues. Like, there are much bigger issues in Future Home than climate change. There are always issues upon issues in our lives that seem much bigger than the declining health of the earth. And so climate change, or the climate crisis as a lot of people call it now, is almost never at the forefront of our minds. Sometimes it'll get mentioned, or you'll see something in the news and you're suddenly reminded of it. But most of the times, like the characters of a novel, there are more immediate and pressing matters that consume your thoughts, and it makes climate change a foreign and uncomfortable topic to even begin addressing. So the ultimate question is, how can I or other people even begin trying to solve these gigantic issues when it is almost certain that it's not going to be solved by one individual person? So even if I care with all my heart about the climate, it's not going to do really that much unless I am Jeff Bezos. What makes it even harder to care about is that in this shitty world there are 100 times worse things than the climate. I'm sure lots of people don't really give a shit about the climate because they're starving. They don't have houses, they're getting evicted, and they need to figure out what to eat for the next meal. Worrying about climate change is somewhat of a privileged thing to do. Almost 100% of the time, shitty governments, political upheaval, economic crises, and pandemics will always take precedent over the slow and rather unexciting melting of the ice caps. We can't solve the problem by planting more trees. There are too many shameless, money-grubbing people on this planet for individual people who don't have much money on an individual level to really change anything. So, why are you looking at me? I can't solve this problem. I'm merely the herald to point it out. And if you're wondering why I'm even making a video on a topic that I don't really know the answer to, The answer is this is my channel and I can post whatever shitty videos I want. The only thing I really have a message to impart here is that we, humble little human beings that aren't billionaires, can and should be more shameless. It's okay to turn the AC once in a while and not dwell on the consequences that has. You can buy from fast fashion once in a while, you're not gonna kill a child. And it's fine if you eat meat from time to time. The world isn't going to end. We have to stop being so hard on ourselves and attacking people who are not in power whatsoever. So stop calling YouTubers out for accidentally using a product that wasn't vegan. It's not gonna make the world a better place.
And I pay for my place by the ring where I'll be looking.
Before reading this book, I didn't really feel that any of the female reproductive rights even really impacted me. But this book really did unlock a new can of worms, so thank you very much. I personally have never felt victimized for being a woman or ever really have been insulted because I am one. I've never really experienced any outright forms of sexism, at least I don't remember any such time. And I do feel very lucky for that, since I know that the world is full of terrible shit and plenty of people have to deal with much worse than I have. And sexism is one of the things that make up a lot of the shit that's on this planet, you know? So over the last year, like everybody, I have been extremely more online than I was before the pandemic. My screen time on Instagram jumped from like less than an hour to like 3 hours a day. And just got on Twitter recently, so, and also Tumblr, so I'm also just significantly more exposed to things that are happening in the world than I was before. I actively keep up with the news. I follow BBC on Instagram. I watch the Philip DeFranco show every day. And it's really made me realize that, wow, the world is terrible. I just want to go home. This is terrible. I don't want to be here anymore. Can I just leave? This might be a no-brainer for most people, or for just people who are a little bit more worldly and educated than me. But Future Home really did make me realize how objectively women are treated, like how objectifying it is to be a woman. And whenever I try to write about this topic, I always sound weird, and I can't quite really write about feminine issues without feeling like I'm unqualified to talk about them. Even though I am a woman, I just always feel as if I'm some kind of outsider looking in, and I'm not qualified enough to talk about women's issues. I can never find the right words, and I can just not really sound as literate as I usually do when talking about something more removed, I guess. I usually just turn into like a bumbling mess of like defensiveness and absolute confusion. So, you know what? I will just be a bumbling mess. Fuck it, I'll just say whatever.
Most of the time. Most of the time.
I'm fucking scared. I don't want to be forced into being pregnant by the government. That was literally my reaction when I read the book. I was like, fuck, this is terrible. I don't want that. Like, wow, are you sure about that? Like, are you really sure they don't want to get forcefully impregnated by the government? Really, this fear probably stems from a deeper fear or general fear of having people interfering with my bodily autonomy or my, in general, freedom and such. I'm going to be real here, completely honest, 100% transparency. God, I sound like a YouTuber making like a let's talk video. I'm just rehearsing for when that day comes, you know? But no joke, this is a very vulnerable fucking moment for me, and it's very cringe too, so. Please, shh, be quiet, okay? Listen to me. For me, my fear of control stems from something that is much more primordial, like, you know, 10 years ago. It's not something new, and I've known it to be there for a while now. And though the specific fear of the government controlling my rights and my freedom and my bodily autonomy has not really been a problem with me, has not really been a specific fear for me. I have realized that I get really defensive whenever someone tries to make suggestions to me. I get really defensive whenever someone makes like a suggestion to me, because subconsciously I think that they're trying to control me, like Big Brother style control me. And I know it's quite irrational, and I don't really know the cause of this fear. Okay, maybe I know a little bit, which is why the whole idea of the government controlling women's pregnancy made me freak out a bit. Even though never before has really made me scared. Like, I've heard about The Handmaid's Tale. I didn't read it, so maybe that's why I didn't unlock this fear sooner. But yeah, I have heard about it. I didn't really think it was that scary to me. After I read a book writing about a world where it's in like a similar scenario where the government is policing women's bodies, I do feel differently. I guess I just had never thought about it in a way as like control. Like, I've never felt it as like, oh, it's someone controlling someone else. It mostly feels indifferent. Maybe because it's like a government instead of a distinct person, you know? So yeah, being a woman is hard. Or like a free piece of real estate that everyone wants to control in some way or another. Slut shaming, not having equal rights, purity, chastity, abortion laws. If you're a virgin by the time you're out of high school, then you're a prude. But if you have slept with multiple guys, then you're a whore. So if you get raped, it's your fault. Your skirt is too short, you have to wear a bra. You're showing too much cleavage. I'm fucking tired of it. I'm fucking tired of writing about it. I'm also fucking tired of talking about it right now. Even though most of this stuff, it hasn't happened to me personally. And thank God it hasn't. I can't imagine what other people have to go through. But there is a certain point where I get tired of hearing about it. Like, I'm like, why? After everything that has happened, why are people still so shit? Every week, I swear, I hear about how so-and-so sexually assaulted this girl. Chris Rue was arrested on suspicion of rape, and day after day, I keep seeing some new guy getting accused of sexual assault. And I'm like, has every guy done this ever? Like, it's infuriating how people never learn. Like, God, why are you such a shit human being? Why do you do this again and again? Why are people always so fucking, I want to say evil, but it sounds too black and white, but yeah, evil. I will say evil. Rapists are bad. We can agree on that, right? Rapists are bad people. Okay, the script is a mess. I did warn you though. I did, and you still watched. If you're still here at this point, I don't think anybody is. But if you are, it's almost in, don't worry. This really was just an endless rambling of my personal fears and anxieties that I have no way of getting out other than writing a 2,000 word script about it. This was originally a video about a book. The book, it's a really good book, Future Home of the Living God. It's a good book, go read it, it's amazing. It also has like interesting things about like Christianity and stuff. It's pretty good. So we've reached the end, and I'm fine. Really, I am. Like, I am fine right now, and I will be fine in the future, and even when I'm not fine, eventually I will get to that point of being fine. Nothing is dying currently. My birds are fine. If you heard them in this video, they're screaming their head off. I have bubble tea, and everything's pretty decent. So everything's okay. Even if they're not, but at least for now, nothing has exploded. I'm still here. And even if Mother Nature decides to eat us, at least we'll become fertilizers for the flowers.